Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, October 24th. We are here again, Pulse of the Pack, fresh off of a recap of a Packers 42 to 24 ass whipping of the Oakland Raiders. Now, to quote the great Bill Belichick, we are on to Kansas City. And unfortunately, a depressing version because it seems unlikely at this point. Won't completely rule it out since Andy Reid won't, but Andy, I'm not buying it, man. Patrick Mahomes probably not going to play on Sunday, so that sucks. We will get to see Aaron Rodgers, but we will not get to see the best quarterback in the NFL take the field on Sunday. Again, please don't light me on fire, Packers fans, but that is how I feel. I am your host this evening. I am Jacob Westendorf, and joined with me is Toli Rodriguez. Toli, how are we doing?
Tony Rodriguez. For those of you who watched King of Queens in the 90s, you will get that reference. So if you don't get it, you don't know.
If you know, I'm not going to pretend my friend didn't exist. It's not a pretend thing. So,
thank you.
Yes, happy to do that. As I'm watching in the background here, Jason, I just mentioned that the Vikings gave Washington new life, and Dwayne Haskins promptly threw an interception. So that life is now in the toilet. For if you were hoping for the Vikings to lose, I guess, which I don't really care. Green Bay is better than Minnesota, so I'm not worried about that. But Jason, we are here to talk Packers and Chiefs. Just some keys to the game and going forward on stuff like that. The first key to the game that I think, so Andy Reid off of a bye is a thing. This version is not a traditional bye week, but he's had 10 days to prepare, and he probably knows that he's going with a backup quarterback. So that gives him 10 days to come up with all this creative concepts and all these sorts of things that he can do to try and torture Mike Pettine's defense. And really, Mike Pettin and his crew had a bit of a rough day against the Oakland Raiders and John Gruden last weekend. Andy Reid's a better offensive coach than John Gruden is, so that's something to keep in mind. But what I think is their biggest key is they need to weather the early storm. And Kansas City is going to be ready. They're going to be more rested. They're going to be at home. They'll have all kinds of advantages like that in their corner. What the Packers need to do is keep the game within striking distance. What I mean by that is you can't fall behind 14-0 early. Now, I don't expect that, but you need to get Kansas City off script. You need to keep them off schedule as much as possible at this point to keep the game in a position where you are still able to win it. Kansas City is a tough place to play. The last time the Packers were there, it was less than positive. It was the 1-15-1. They haven't won there since 2007 when Brett Favre, his final year, they beat Kansas City there, and it really took a late Charles Woodson interception combined with a Greg Jennings touchdown reception from Brett Favre to win that game. So it hasn't been a great place for Green Bay if you want to go with the history angle, which I know Jason is always a big fan of. So Toli, I need to ask here, what do you think as far as Green Bay's ability on Sunday to survive the early storm?
Well, they've got it. I mean, they can do it. They've only lost one game so far. So, of course they can. All that stuff's important, though, what you mentioned. And, yeah, I mean, the history is one thing. But if anything, you know what? I mean, Aaron Rodgers was told that he's not elite anymore, and he got pissed off and went out and accounted for 6 touchdowns by himself in one game. I mean, not by himself, but he threw for 5, and receivers had to catch the ball, but, he ran for 1.
And the old man was even able to run for 1.
Run for 1. FedEx Air Player of the Week, so that was your consolation prize. So if you want to remind Aaron Rodgers, hey, you got your butts kicked here last time. You lost that one game, and you lost your perfect season, and then your perfect season ended terribly in the playoffs to the New York Giants. A pissed off Aaron Rodgers on Sunday Night Football in primetime isn't the worst thing on earth. So, all that stuff is maybe in the past might have been concerned, but Jake, every week when you read the coverage and you see the recaps from practice and you listen to the coaches talk and you listen to the players talk, this is a different team. I mean, the swagger that this team has is starting to filter down to us and as fans and those of us that talk about the team. And so great, all that stuff is there, but I'm much less inclined for once in my life, and probably much to your enjoyment, to say, well, historically they haven't played well, because it just doesn't matter this season.
Yeah, and it hasn't. Thankfully, the Packers, especially in recent history, have been a bad road team, and they have not lost on the road yet. So that's something that's positive. Obviously, they have 2 road games here, and they're going to have to win some road games down the stretch here because they don't play a lot of games at Lambeau Field. They have, I think, 3 games left there for the rest of the season. Obviously, that means they have 6 road games, so they're going to have to win against some tough teams on the road here in upcoming weeks, and Kansas City is no different. Toli, let me move forward here to the quarterback matchup, which we were anticipating, and unfortunately not going to get. So there's kind of two schools of thought for fandom. Some people think that, oh, it's great. Mahomes isn't playing, and that should mean that Green Bay wins. And obviously, I want the Packers to win. That is a nice potential side effect if they are able to beat Matt Moore and the Kansas City Chiefs. Me, I'm a firm believer that in order to beat the best or be the best, you have to beat the best. That's why every single year when the Packers are in the playoffs, I want them to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl because that's the measuring stick, right?
Yep.
Well, in this case, if this defense wants to be really good, I'm a believer in measuring stick games and where are you at right now? And just because you're not in the right spot right now doesn't mean you won't be in 2010. In 2010 at the end of the season. In 2010, the Packers defense wasn't great against some better teams early in the year. By the end of the year, they were rolling on all cylinders. And really, outside of the Super Bowl, where they still played pretty well, they were great throughout the entire postseason. So they were great for 3 games and pretty good for a Super Bowl game. But they weren't always a dominant unit. So I would like to see where exactly is this Packers defense, because right now they've played one pretty good quarterback in Carson Wentz this season, and that is it. And that did not go very well. The Packers gave up 34 points. Carson Wentz had a good night. The running game for the Eagles had a good night, and it looks like the Eagles suck. So that loss is looking to be a little worse each week. If you use my Kirk Cousins theory, which is I base who good teams are based on how they perform against Kirk Cousins. If you get lit up by Kirk Cousins, then your team sucks. Well, the Eagles gave up 4 touchdown passes to Kirk Cousins. The Eagles suck. They then got their ass kicked on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys last week, and that didn't help their cause. So that loss is looking worse. But the Packers really, outside of that, I mean, Matthew Stafford is okay. Derek Carr had an okay game, but I don't think he's very good. Dak Prescott is Dak Prescott. Mitchell Trubisky, Kirk Cousins, all those guys, nothing special, quite frankly. So missing out on Patrick Mahomes is disappointing because then you start looking ahead. Phillip Rivers isn't what he used to be, so that's not an elite quarterback. Kyle Allen, Cam Newton, it really doesn't matter which one. Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers offense is good, but that seems to be less because of him than anything else. And then, I mean, we keep going down the line here. Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, whoever Washington's throwing out at quarterback. Then it's Trubisky. Then it's Cousins again. And then it's Matt Stafford. I mean, there's not a lot in terms of great quarterback. There is no Drew Brees. There is no Russell Wilson. So this was kind of the measuring stick game, and now it's gone. I mean, what is your take on that? What school of thought do you line in? Do you just, hey, screw it, I want the Packers to win, so I'm cool with playing Matt Moore? Or did you want to see them against Mahomes?
First of all, can I just say, and I know this is not going to be very popular right now, but I can't not say something. Stephon Diggs' footwork is just phenomenal, man.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
It's just unbelievable. No, I'm with you. I wanted the Packers to play Mahomes, and in the past, I think I might have been a little bit more like, hey, I just want to win the game because, you forget conveniently that when you get to the playoffs, every team is elite. Every team is good. Very few teams kind of eke in there. I mean, every once in a while, there's like a 7-9 team that wins a division and isn't as great. But even that team, remember, they beat the Saints in 2010, which paved the way for the Packers to go to the Super Bowl. So, you want to play the best version of it. I had this game circled on the schedule when it came out. I didn't have it turning out favorably for the Packers in our preview show. Jake, I don't remember how you picked it.
I believe the word I used was mollywopped. So
mollywopped, yeah.
I thought Kansas City was going to destroy Green Bay.
Yeah, and we both assumed that Mahomes would play and that the Chiefs were going to look a lot more like last year's version. This year's version isn't looking as scary. Even if Mahomes was playing and was 100% in this game, I still think the Packers would have a chance to win it. The tipping factor for me would just be the fact that it's on the road and it's all those, it's against a veteran coach who's very good coming off a bye week. And anybody who wants to tell me that Andy Reid doesn't have a little bit extra in his pocket for the Packers is wrong. Anytime you get a chance to play your old team, you want to bring a little bit extra, something special. So it's a bummer. I mean, we may still see Mahomes out there. Listen, we don't know. I mean, as dumb as it sounds that the Chiefs put him at risk and put him out there, and 2 plays in, he hurts his knee and then he's gone for the season or longer. And what that could potentially do, Andy Reid could be packing his stuff and leaving Kansas City. He might still play. I don't know. I mean, the words I saw on Twitter today, and I did tweet something about it, I have my own opinions, were Mahomes actually looks pretty good. He was doing drills. They weren't football drills at all. It was just simple stretch drills. Wasn't any kind of full speed. It was like, jogging and stretching hamps. It was nothing special. And that was what they said. Mahomes looked good. I think it's gamesmanship. I don't think he's going to play, but you want him to play. But I will say, I still think there's enough going on in this game the Chiefs can bring that's going to test the Packers. And because it's on the road, as much as their defense has improved, and this is a team that's 6-1, and they're one of the top contenders in the NFC, they still are going to have a very stiff test, even though this quarterback has not played a full game in over a season and a half. That's just kind of the way it goes. And I've always said too, the NFC AFC games are always weird. Yep. So you got to factor all that stuff in.
Yeah, uncommon opponent. A lot of weird stuff goes on in these AFC NFC games. Just because, like you mentioned, the last time Green Bay played Kansas City was 4 years ago, and that was a Lambeau Field Monday night game. The Aaron Rodgers negatively graded 5 touchdown, 0 interception performance, which is quite funny, but that's beside the point at this point. Looking on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of focus obviously on that Patty Mahomes is not going to play, or more likely not going to play. Chris Jones and Frank Clark both have yet to practice. Kendall Fuller did not practice, and we're recording this on a Thursday. That's a big deal, and that's something that I don't think is being discussed enough. It's Kansas City's defense kind of sucks already. And if you take, Chris Jones is their best player. Frank Clark is right there with him. And Kendall Fuller is probably their best cornerback. So Tyrann Mathieu is still back there. Obviously, he's capable of making some plays. Other than that, I struggle to see a way that Kansas City is going to be able to stop Green Bay just because they don't have the horses to run with them on defense. And then you add in the fact that, Kansas City struggled against an offensive line, and Indy's is pretty good. It might be better than Green Bay's, especially in the run blocking department. I think there's certainly room for debate there. But then you add in that Marlon Mack's not as good as Aaron Jones, and Jamal Williams has been off to a pretty good start here this season, especially the last couple of weeks. I think he's played the best football of his career. If we were doing our awards show today, Jason, I might be saying Jamal Williams is the most improved player on this Packers team through the start of this season. So Green Bay's got a really good 1-2 punch at running back. I think this might be one of your old school games to where Green Bay's biggest advantage on offense is going to be the fact that they should be able to run the football. I don't want to say it will just because that's disrespectful, I think, to some point, but they should be able to effectively run the ball all night long. Aaron Jones, I think, could be in line for a big night, and I think that might be Green Bay's biggest advantage. And then you let Marquez Valdez-Scantling turn himself loose in the secondary. We'll get to Devontae Adams here in a minute. But tell me a little bit about what do you think as far as Green Bay using that 1-2 running attack? And the Colts used it to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. Obviously, you're not as concerned about Matt Moore being on the field as you are Patty Mahomes. But that running game is going to come in key here on Sunday night, isn't it?
Hugely. Yeah. And I still say, listen, Andy Reid is going to simplify the offense and make it easy for Matt Moore. And the Chiefs' plan is also going to be to play clock drain with Moore on the field. Easy passes, short passes, quick passes. Try to use the short pass as an extension of your running game because the Chiefs, they don't light the world on fire there. But yeah, it's going to be important to get the 1-2 punch going. But I think that might be, depending on the injury situation, that might be a key for the Chiefs. They might just say, hey, listen, if Rodgers becomes too one-dimensional, we're not the Raiders. He's not going to beat us. Good luck. You tested this year's version of Aaron Rodgers. Last year, if you told me he's going to have to throw it 50 times in this game, I would have said, okay, dial it, you turn it in, forget it. This year, doesn't matter. I don't care. Aaron Rodgers got it going on. He against the blitz last week, he looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers, throwing the ball on time, getting it to his guys quickly. He only took 1 sack, and I think that's in the Packers offensive line right now. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am delinquent as the game ball name call author at Cheesehead TV. I am delinquent in not giving Brian Bulaga a game ball yet this season because offensive linemen never get any love. And that guy has been nothing but an absolute brick wall. We talk about Elton Jenkins being great as a left guard, as a rookie. He's going to be fantastic. David Bakhtiari, we all know who he is. Corey Linsley, who incidentally, did not practice on Thursday with a back. I don't know if that's going to be long term. I don't think he's at danger of not playing, but this offensive line is fantastic. But if the Chiefs decide to take that away, you're putting the ball in the FedEx Air player, future Hall of Famers, hands this week. The Packers can make do with it.
Good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have, and don't forget about Danny Vitale. So if the run game doesn't work, use those guys as receivers. They've got the weapons to do something else.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they did on Sunday. It was the short passing game to guys like Vitale, Jones, Williams was really an extension of the running game because they weren't awful. It wasn't like the Eagles game where they could only move the ball 2 yards of crack on the ground, but it wasn't what you normally would have come to expect at this point. The offensive line is something I think that, like you mentioned, it's kind of gone unnoticed, but one of the biggest improvements from this year's team from last year is Elton Jenkins is playing better than last year's version of Lane Taylor by leaps and bounds, in my opinion. And Billy Turner is much better than Byron Bell and Justin McCray. And guard play has been much better this year. And that's something that, there were a lot of moans and a lot of groans when the Packers took Elton Jenkins. And right now that's looking really smart. I've been very critical of the receiver unit, but I don't know if there's a rookie receiver that they could have picked in the second round that you can sit here and say, oh yeah, he would have infinitely helped this team much more than Elton Jenkins has so far this season. This unit is dangerously close. I don't want to quite call them dominant just yet, but they are scratching the surface of that. You mentioned Brian Bulaga. That's a first-team All-Pro. And I don't think there's any question. He's been the best right tackle in football this season. You go through that. We talked about it in our preview show at the beginning of the year. You go through those murderers row of pass rushers. Khalil Mack, Daniil Hunter, Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. Some of those guys the Eagles have. DeMarcus Lawrence, Trey Flowers. Not a peep from those guys. Nothing. Brian Bulaga's been wonderful. No question about it whatsoever. Devontae Adams starting to do a little bit. And it's positive. Matt LaFleur said that they may take it up to game time on Sunday, which is a positive also because in the past weeks, and we'll see obviously as I say this now, he'll probably rule them out tomorrow, but they've ruled them out on Friday each of the last 2 weeks, saying he won't play. Today, LaFleur said in his press conference that they'll probably take it up to game time. So that's at least some progress in the right direction. I don't want to get in the business of guessing when he's coming back. I tend to think that maybe they're targeting after the bye, but if he's healthy before then, they'll call it a bonus. But at the end of the day, I think they want him ready for San Francisco. That being said, last week was a bit of a middle finger to, my God, Dwayne Haskins. That's terrible.
I'm behind you, so I haven't seen it yet.
It's really bad. It's not good. But no, last week was a bit of a middle finger to the guys that have been critical of the wide receiver unit. Jake Kumaro had a touchdown. Big day for Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Alan Lazard made a couple plays again. Aaron Rodgers threw 5 touchdown passes. Big week. Jimmy Graham had a big week. That being said, Jason, I think it's been good for this receiving core that Adams hasn't played. That being said, let's dispel the notion right now that this offense is better without Davante Adams. We can safely say that is not the case.
No, it's never better without him. It might operate differently. And yeah, I guess Dwayne Haskins doesn't realize he's not in college anymore. So that, what do you expect out of an Ohio State quarterback? The Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in football. And I still think that's the case. And he could step on the field right now in his condition that he's in and outplay 80% of the receivers out there. And that's just the way it goes. He's very dedicated to his craft. He's a pro. And yeah, when he comes back, the offense might operate differently. It might look differently because he's going to get a lot of targets and some of these other guys aren't going to get a lot of targets. But guess what? What are you trying to do? Put the ball in the hands of your best players. Davante Adams is that. So no, it's not. They're getting along fine without him. But this is a testament to Matt LaFleur, Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive staff, putting together a game plan where they can morph the offense. They can change it to fit the personnel that's out there. They're doing it well because they're tailoring what they're doing to who is out there. If Davante Adams is out there, naturally it's going to look different because Davante Adams can do a lot of things these guys can't do. He's going to run a lot of routes these guys can't run. And here's the reality, Jake. If you're a quarterback, and let's pretend you just get yourself in Aaron Rodgers' body for 1 second and you have all of his same abilities and you look downfield and Allen Lazard and Davante Adams are both open, streaking down the field, who are you throwing the ball to?
Yeah, if they're both open.
So that's just, I mean, if they're both open and it's 50-50 and they're both wide open, you're throwing the ball to 17. So yeah, for anybody to worry about that, I'll worry about it when I see it, but I can only look forward to when Davante Adams does come back. I do have to say selfishly, I'm okay with him sitting these next 2 weeks, but the week after that, I kind of hope he plays. And for those of you who don't know, that's because Jake and I are going to be in the house for the Carolina game.
Yep.
But if that's the target though, and here's the deal, they beat KC and they beat LA without Adams. I don't want him to play against Carolina. My assumption is that they might want to try to steal one against the Panthers. The Panthers are good. That might, if it's close and you need your best players out there, Davante Adams, I'd rather have him out there than not, but they got to be smart with him. And this is one of those, we haven't been in this position for a while. I'm very thankful the Packers are succeeding, but for them to have the luxury of saying, hey, look, we're doing well. Let's let it ride. Let's let him get completely healthy. I think that's one of the reasons why they were able to let Darnell Savage take 2 weeks off. Looks like he's got a shot to play this week. He hasn't been ruled in or out, but he has practiced both days. If you get him back, and a lot of people have been clamoring for him to come back because the pass defense has struggled without him, although I think that's interesting. He's a rookie, but, if he's a big linchpin, he may come back. So just the health of this team, you only had 2 guys that didn't practice on Thursday. So that's not a bad place to be when you're at midseason and you haven't had, and your bye week is still a couple weeks away.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. I know one concern that I've had voiced to me from some fans is just that when Adams comes back, that they'll make a concerted effort to target him instead of spreading the ball around the way that they have been. And I understand that. I think that's something that will take care of itself. What I do know is that I often say, later in the game, it's less about what play you're running and what player you're running that play for. When the Patriots need a big play last year in the Super Bowl, AFC Championship game, whatever, it was Julian Edelman and it was Rob Gronkowski. It wasn't any play they ran. It's like they had set plays for these guys. Here's our primary reads. That's the guy. Your money players have to make the money plays on the money downs. And that's something that Green Bay is going to need because Davante Adams is their money player. And you could see that a little bit in, I take that back. The close game, they played a close game against Detroit. That was a little wonky all the way around. But against Philadelphia, when Adams left with an injury, you saw it. Aaron Rodgers was targeting Jimmy Graham. That's who he thought his money player was in that situation. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for various reasons. But that is going to be something to continue to monitor. Jason, let's get to it here as our final bit of the show. Packers-Chiefs, Sunday Night Football. It's at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. The Packers looking to go to 7-1. The Chiefs have lost 2 straight home games and are likely to be playing without their starting quarterback. And because of that, I know the phrasing that I used earlier in our season preview show, but I mean, one of the disadvantages of us doing the show at that point is that obviously we can't take into account what injuries happen because we don't know. So that's kind of the hard part. But without Mahomes, and then you add in probably no Chris Jones, probably no Frank Clark, and probably no Kendall Fuller, and a hobbled Eric Fisher, the advantages that swung in KC's favor look to be in Green Bay's favor now. The only way that I can think Kansas City wins is if Andy Reid just does a masterful job and flummoxes Mike Patton all night long. And it's certainly possible. I got a lot of love for Andy Reid. I've watched him very closely since 1999. We got hired as the Philadelphia Eagles head coach. But that being said, Green Bay just has the advantages on the field. Aaron Rodgers should be able to do whatever he wants. This running game should be able to go all over the place. The Smith brothers should have a field day against a leaky offensive line. I like Green Bay to win this game. I think it'll be closer than what people think. I think Green Bay wins this game 34-27. Nice little win by a touchdown, head into LA here for the following week. But Jason, who you got, KC or Green Bay?
Well, I deviated from my preseason predictions a couple times already this season, and they did not turn out well for me. So I said I wasn't going to do that anymore. So now you've got an interesting situation where you have Andy Reid coming off a bye, and you said flummox Mike Pettin, and you got Mike Pettin coming off a game where his guys could not sack the quarterback with the starting right tackle out, that being the Raiders. It's the Smith brothers, nobody got a sack. It's a road game, and despite all the things that Kansas City does not have going for them, I don't know. I just have my gut says just stick with what I said originally. I think this is going to be a much closer game, but for some reason I can see this coming down to a game where Kansas City just ekes it out. I've got them winning by 1. I've got a 31-30 Chiefs, and I'm going to stick with it. I mean, I don't necessarily know that I believe that that's what's going to happen, but I don't want to deviate from what I said earlier. And even though there's every reason to think that the Packers win this game, and they're favored, and I think they have every chance to. I kind of want to see it. I need to see it. They beat Kansas City. The sky's the limit, and then we go into the Chargers game the next week, and then I'll start deviating and saying, okay, they're okay. They can do this. They rose up. They figured out how to do it. Because again, Oakland, no starting right tackle, so if Eric Fisher is out, how do I know that they're gonna be able to beat that whole pressure? They couldn't get a sack last week, so Mike Pettin sent pressure, blitzes, all this kind of stuff. Nothing. And I know the Raiders don't, Derek Carr is a quick pass guy and he gets the ball out and he doesn't have a lot of sacks anyway, but that's my rationale. You got Andy Reid, just a super veteran head coach, and he's at home. And for them to lose 3 games at home in a row, I wouldn't mind handing it to him, but I'd like to pay him back a little bit for 2011 because I was plenty irritated when the Packers lost that game. But it's just a tough task to ask in Arrowhead on prime time. So I've got the Packers falling in a squeaker.
Well, the good news is that Tolly Rodriguez is the one who made that pick, and Tolly Rodriguez is not a real person. So I'm not even worried about that at this point.
So you are going to forget that I happened. Okay.
I am going to forget that you happened. So that's going to do it for this edition. Be sure to check it out at Packer Pulse. You can follow us on our YouTube channel at Pulse of the Pack. We got a nice new logo on that page there. So thank you to our friend Rockhard for putting that together for us. Follow us. You got Jason Perrone. He's at Jason Perrone. You can follow me. I'm at Jacob Westendorf. And I'm going to end this show with a quote from the head coach of Matt LaFleur when they go into Kansas City Sunday, and that is very simple. All gas, no fucking brake.